OCW or something? There's like symbols in the background. Oh, don't know if there's like puzzles in this game or like information I need to keep track of. Does it see me? That didn't work. Nope. Yes. Yes. Is there a catch?
So, yes. Sort of. Bones are... Have you heard of this shit, Xander? I was up all night reading about bones.
He just learned about them just now. In this case. Your skeleton is wet like all the time. It's crazy. Hey everyone, I guess I haven't done a call to action for a while and I've been neglecting my duties at actually promoting the Patreon in places that most people actually see. But hey, this is how I make a living. This is how the whole channel is able to do what it does. I launched my Patreon in like 2015 and it led to me being able to go full-time in 2016, and it's the only reason any of this works because YouTube just does not pay. Like, this is where I actually make my money, and everyone should know about it on some level because it's just the basics of how any of this is able to function. But anyway, a while back I launched a $5 tier that is called the early access thing, and it gives you access to a huge amount of video content, and very helpfully Patreon added this nice little collections tab over here that just lets you view these as a whole, so you can actually see the totality of this. So every now and then you might see a community post that says, hey, look, you can watch this early, and like that might sound nice, but that might just like slide off your brain. You're like, oh, whatever, I'll see it next week or something. I don't know if people really realize the totality of how big this has gotten at this point. So like in here, like, we'll go through in order. Like there's some behind the scenes videos or whatever, and like this is where you'll first see anything about video essays when they're finally getting done, that's sporadic, admittedly. I've got a Patreon Q&A series that's available. I think right now I'm doing one like every other week or so, and you can see there's over 100 episodes of that. Luigi's Mansion 2, that's the playthrough that just launched like yesterday, and here you can see that's 3 more parts right here. So that's 6 more hours of Luigi's Mansion 2 that you can watch immediately. And people are more familiar with that, the idea that when I make a new playthrough, you can watch some of it early elsewhere if you come over here. And there's like Silent Hill Downpour is here, Echoes of Wisdom is here. But less obviously, stuff like Rain World is here, which is the new winner of this quarter's Patreon vote. So I'm doing a Rain World playthrough that is currently exclusive to Patreon, and it will come out at some point, but I sincerely don't know when, and what I mean by that will become clear a bit over time here. There's Entropy Center, because I was mentioned that I haven't done enough puzzle games lately, so I've got another playthrough of Entropy Center over here, which is a first-person chamber-based, like Portal-ish puzzle game. People watching the Echoes of Wisdom playthrough have heard about me playing Link Between Worlds because I accidentally did a Zelda playthrough right before a Zelda game came out because I forgot. That's coming out. And that's like every few weeks or so on, and that's just hours and hours of that. Like here you can see it's already up to 6 parts, which is 12 hours of A Link Between Worlds. Undefeated is the next furry visual novel that we'll be playing with Bird. And there's already 4 parts of that out. That's been coming out relatively frequently. You can watch the rest of Glory Hounds right now, all 7 parts of it, because we finished the currently available content. So if people like that, they can watch all of it. But then there's like Professor Layton 2 is here. Snipper Clips is here. This is a bit of a weird case where I just went through my old hard drive and found a playthrough I never finished with Marty of Snipper Clips and was like, I'll just throw it on Patreon. This might be permanently Patreon exclusive because it's an unfinished playthrough, but it's like sort of like a super long let's try of sorts, dubious recording environment and whatnot. But it's fun content, and I figured instead of just deleting it, I'll throw it on Patreon and let people have that. I have a complete playthrough of Yakuza 6 on here. Just the entire whole ass Yakuza game, 30 hours long playthrough, is just sitting here on Patreon ever since May, and now you're starting to see how long some of the stuff can be here. Vampire Survivors is on here, just kind of a weird, like, I was just mashing sessions together for fun and not sure what to do with it content-wise, and I was like, well, I'll take what I have so far and put it on Patreon, why not, and give them that. I have a full playthrough of Armored Core 6 and a full playthrough of Yuppie Psycho, and you can also watch ahead on Patreon for Password. So here's Armored Core 6. I just did all of the game. It's been there since April. Yuppie Psycho's been here since April. This is my oldest playthrough that I have on the channel, probably, that's on Patreon only. Before this, the main one I had was I think Black Sad was Patreon exclusive for like 10 months or something. And the reason for that's kind of interesting. What's going on here is more that my new schedule allows me to do two things. Like, one, I can cover new releases immediately or do special events and stuff like that. So when I cover Echoes of Wisdom, I start it for you guys publicly immediately, but then I binge record to get it ahead of schedule for Patreon so they can watch even more of it on Patreon. But then there's just like the downtime where I don't currently have a new release to cover, and so at that point I'll just like put it on the Patreon conveyor. I'll just like record some game that I've been meaning to get to, and I'll put it at the end of the line on Patreon, and that stuff might be on Patreon exclusively for like 6 to 8 months potentially, because when it's time to release new stuff that isn't new releases on the public schedule, I'll generally go by whatever is oldest on Patreon at the moment. So like that's more recently I was putting on Jusant and Pseudo Regalia and games like that, which had been on Patreon for like 6 months before they came out to the public. And so that's been kind of the loop lately. So there's a disparity. There's current games in progress that have Patreon updates, but then there's games that I just exclusively upload to Patreon, and I genuinely do not have a specific roadmap for when it's going to come out to the public. So who knows? So when you see this kind of stuff being announced, the way to watch it pretty much is Patreon for the immediately foreseeable future, because 6 months in a way is like kind of an eternity. Didn't really plan that out that way, but it's just kind of how things have turned out, and it has led to an outcome where I just have like a Netflix catalog of playthroughs that people can watch, and that's a great way of, like, you know, giving people cool perks for supporting the channel. This might even be news to people that are already in the audience, but yeah, if you're on my Patreon, click on the collections tab. There's a really nice menu here where you can just see the massive amount of stuff here. And yeah, if you hated yourself enough to watch the Password 12-hour Haas route playthrough, you can watch all of these parts that are going to become the 12-hour Orlando playthrough. And when we do the next route, which I think is probably Roswell, this is the first place you're gonna see it. I'm gonna play a bunch of clips of the games that are Patreon exclusive now as a trailer, I guess. I don't know. Please go to the Patreon if you would like any of this content, or if you just want to support the channel, because it's how I make a living, and I don't shout it out enough because I feel bad for advertising, basically, but it's literally how I do any of this. So check it out. See ya.
Ah, yes. The rapscallion who tongued me. That's a James Bond movie that I want to see.
There's so many missiles.
AP at 50%.
Am I supposed to lose this fight or not?
AP at 30%.
It is not a meant to lose fight. I have to figure out how to win.
The handheld entropy device only contains enough power to rewind static objects up to 300 cubic meters in size. In normal terms, that means you can rewind small structures, debris, and puzzle elements, of course. Living animals, such as the office cat, cannot be rewound.
There was a guy tied to a chair and dozens of employees hanging from the walls. We've got to tell someone. Well, man, I don't think there's anything like that going on in here. I swear, there were coffee makers and monitors flying through the air Don't tease me, Pasternak.
Furthermore, look around you, Inspector. Doesn't anything strike you as odd?
What do you mean, Professor?
Study your surroundings, Luke. I'm sure you can see it too.
And the eye showing up means you can tell when it's vulnerable. Oh, didn't time that right. No, boy, howdy did I now. It's never not funny to me how fast you can swing your sword in those games. Ugh.